This is Dave Malloy, and I think I said this earlier, but you were a electromechanical engineer at IBM. Is that how you describe it?
No, more a manufacturing engineer, mechanical manufacturing engineer.
Mechanical manufacturing engineer at IBM.
Yeah.
How long did you work there?
26 years.
26 years. All right. And then you retired, and now you're the Vincent Wizard of California, right?
Of Chicago Park.
Chicago Park, yeah.
Vincent Wizard.
And I actually think about you as a mechanical genius, but when I look at the bikes you've restored, I think there's some artistry in what you do, quite frankly. It's not just a mechanical thing. It's more of a kind of like an eye for how things work and then aesthetically how they look. So to me, it's like a combination between being a really great mechanic and having an eye for things, which is something more along like art to me.
Well, yeah, I do think I have sort of an eye for the art of the motorcycle. You got to have stuff that looks right.
Yeah. Yeah, aesthetically pleasing. And what you do to me is it's mechanically solid, but aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
And when you restore a motorcycle, you like to keep them looking as original as possible.
Well, yeah, within reason.
But you also want to be able to ride it.
But the cardinal rule is don't make modifications that you can't go back on.
Right.
You know, if you can just like the seat stays we put on yours, you can, when the day that goes into the museum, they can just unbolt those and bolt on seat stays, and you're all back to original.
And tell me when you got your first Vincent.
I was in San Jose, and it was 1971, and I had a friend that spotted one in the paper, and we were motorcycle buddies, and he says, "Hey, you ought to look into this." He says, "I rode one of those one time. They were pretty neat." So I went and bought it for $1,000.
Ah! Was it a Shadow?
Well, no, it was a Rapide. And it wasn't that good, you know.
It's funky?
Yeah. It was just...
What year was it?
It was, I think, about a 1950.
A 1950 Rapide for $1,000.
Yeah. And I didn't really like it very much.
Oh, really?
And then in 1973, right in my same neighborhood, a guy had a Black Shadow for sale, and he was the original owner. So I bought that Black Shadow from him in 1973, and it was like $2,000, which was a lot of money, because I had bought I think I bought a new Triumph Trident that year, and it was like $1,800 or something, you know. That was a top-of-the-line Triumph.
Yeah. Let's just say this.
$2,000 was a lot of money.
Okay, the bike that you paid $2,000 for in '73, what would that be worth today?
Well,
$100,000?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I sold it.
Is that the bike that silver tank bike?
No.
Different bike?
No, it was a different.
Was that the one that was in the garage?
It was still original. It still had original paint tank, original cover on the seat, original paint on the motor.
Wow.
You know, it was a very original.
But that was the one that was in the garage for a while?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you sold it for what?
Well,
a lot.
A lot.
Did you sell for more than $2,000?
Yeah, a little more.
So it ended up being a good investment. It's the expensive motorcycle you bought.
Well, yeah, but that isn't what it's about.
I really almost bought that bike from you. You know that?
Yeah.
I really.
You should have.
I know I should have. I really thought about that for very seriously, you know, for a long time, and now I wish I had bought it. But all right, so did you keep the one that you bought for $1,000? And you had two Vincents then?
No, I actually, after I bought the
Black Shadow,
that Shadow, I sold the Rapide, and then I don't know. I remember getting other Vincents
but that got you into it.
Yeah.
In '71.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you always had Vincents since then?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you've always had Vincents.
I've always
since then.
had a Vincent.
Okay. At what point in time did you become, really super interested in the Vincent?
Well, I had a little transition. I had the Vincent, and then I had other modern bikes. And I bought, I think the last modern bike I bought was a '76 R90S BMW, and I rode that quite a bit. I had 29,000 miles on it in a little over 2 years, and then I found myself not riding the Vincent at all. And I just liked the electric starter and all that. And then I finally I thought, I'm going to pay more attention to this Vincent. So I sold the BMW and sold a lot of my other, I think that was, I had a Rocket 3 too.
Mm-hmm.
And I sold all that stuff and just concentrated on the Vincent. And then I started traveling on it, just taking rides like up to Oregon and stuff. And I really fell in love with it then.
Yeah. And how many times have you ridden your Vincent to Alaska?
Well, that twice, two trips, one in '93 and one in '98.
What was that like?
Well, it was a great, a great trip, a real epic journey.
An epic journey.
Yeah, because we had the first time. Well, both trips we had a group of 15 people we knew that were traveling up there. We only rode in groups of 3 or 4, but this whole moving caravan, some people in cars and stuff, and when we got up there, we all seemed to end up in the same place, the same motel, the same town, and there isn't that many places to stop.
Oh, really?
Of any size. So we all gravitated to the same spot, and then we were all headed to the same rally in Whitehorse in the Yukon.
What kind of rally was it?
Well, it was a Vincent guy up there decided to put on a rally.
So it was a Vincent rally in Alaska?
Almost as a joke. And
people came.
And people came. And we had I don't know, I think 50 Vincents there in '93 or something. I mean, people came from England and Australia and New Zealand, all over for that.
I guess he was surprised that his joke Vincent rally was internationally famous.
Yeah. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But
so you've been riding Vincents exclusively since about that time? I've never seen anything other than Vincent.
Well, no, back it was probably back about 79 or 80 that I'd sold a BMW and just started riding that Black Shadow, and then of course just recently I've got these BSAs too to play around on.
We'll get those on camera. Those are nice. All right, so tell me, a guy's got a Vincent, right? Tell us what they should be watchful of. If you've got a Vincent, what do you need to be careful with on a Vincent?
So you already got one, right?
Yeah, I went out and bought a Vincent. What do I need to know if I go out and buy a Vincent? What do I need to know to ride my Vincent happily without any catastrophes happening?
Well,
how about the electrical system? I think you like the distributor as opposed to the magneto.
Well, I do. Yeah, it's simple to work on, and I understand it, and you can usually fix stuff alongside the road or carry enough spare parts with you.
Yeah. Magnetos are kind of finicky, right?
Well,
They have to be set just exactly right.
well, that's true, and like a lot of stuff could fail in the armature of a magneto. That, I knew a guy that took a long trip, and he actually carried a spare armature with him for a magneto, and he made a special case for it, for the spare, and mounted it somewhere on the bike, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah, it's a lot of trouble. It's also hard to start a bike with a magneto, right?
well, if the magneto is really good, no, they start pretty good, but
Really?
they inherently, with the magneto has to spin so fast to get any spark at all. Well, that's not really true with the distributor. I mean, you can turn it by hand and get it to spark,
Yeah,
and
it's easier.
you can get a spark at a lower speed, and then of course the way the magnetos are built, they have an inherent problem that they get a stronger spark on one cylinder than they do on the other, and he gets the strongest spark on the rear cylinder, and the front cylinder gets the weaker spark, and the front cylinder is the one that tends to have more problems with oiling through the valve guides. So you tend to, if you don't have good oil control, you tend to contaminate that front plug more than the rear.
Yeah.
So you got two things building up on you there.
Yeah. So the front plug is more likely to foul
Than the rear.
and it gets a weaker spark.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You also like the Alton alternator as opposed to the generator. Kind of the same thing with the magneto, right? It's just like a lot easier to ride it.
Well, the generators is, like on my bike, I've got a generator on there, and it's still 6 volts, and I get along fine with it. It takes a little maintenance every couple of years to clean things up and check it over, put it back on, but. Just from a practical standpoint, it's still cheaper, I think, to buy an Alton and put it on than it is to rebuild and restore a generator.
Yeah.
By the time you buy all the little pieces that you have to do and replate the outer part and repaint the cover and all that sort of stuff, you'll have more time and money into a generator.
Yeah.
So.
And what about the clutch? Is your bike the stock clutch?
No, I've changed it over to the same clutch that you got.
Yeah. The stock clutch is kind of like, from whenever I remember looking at it, it kind of looks like a drum brake.
Well, yeah, it's got shoes and a drum, and that's the main part of the clutch, and then outboard of that is a plate clutch, which is the servo for the drum clutch, and the one big advantage it has, and why they did it that way, it's a very light lever pressure, and it's lighter than the aftermarket ones. But although the aftermarket ones are not bad at all,
so the aftermarket clutches, we'll call that what do you call that?
Well,
like Ducati clutch?
Well, it's a Ducati style, and these guys in Australia, V2, I guess started putting those out, but now they make them in England too.
Okay. So if you want to if you don't care about it being original, which you can always, as we said, put it back to original.
Well, and then it's under the cover. You can't see it. And again, from a practical standpoint and a monetary standpoint, it's probably cheaper to put one of those in than it is to get all the stuff fixed up with the stock clutch. And
the stock clutch to me is kind of finicky, and it's just
well, there's a lot of little stuff that goes wrong and can wear out, and
so if you're going to get a Vincent and you want to ride it and you don't care if it's 100% original, the D distributor, the Alton alternator and the Ducati style clutch make life easier, right?
Yeah, I think they're
Yeah.
very practical modifications.
And you like the stock carburetors, right?
I do. It's kind of odd as Amel carburetors progressed. When they got up to the concentric carburetors, like in the late '60s, they came out with them, and they're just not as well made a carburetor as the earlier ones, and there's really nothing in the later ones that's really an improvement over the earlier ones.
I was talking.
The only disadvantage you got on those two-piece carburetors is when you tickle them to start it. If it doesn't start, it's just going to sit there and leak and leak and leak. And what you need to do if it doesn't start for some reason is shut off the gas.
Right. Yeah.
And then
I learned that the hard way.
Figure out what the problem is.
I talked to John Healy.
Yeah.
Healy at the Coventry Spares. I was actually talking to his son, and we were talking about the Amel concentrics, and he said the Amel concentric came into being when the motorcycle manufacturers told Amel they wanted a carburetor that they could buy for I forgot the amount, like $5.
Yeah.
So it was built to be a cheap carburetor.
It was built down to a price.
Right. So they didn't say, "Oh, let's make this really great carburetor." They said, "What's the cheapest carburetor we can make?" And that's how that design came into being.
Yeah. It's fewer pieces and it just they tend to wear out easier and
the slides wear out and rattle and
Yeah.
You know what? Let's take a look at your shop back here. So here's just like less than half of the area, and we've got, what is this?
Well, just a little lathe.
A small lathe.
Kind of like a second operation lathe.
Yeah.
And
what's this?
And then this is
a big giant lathe.
Big lathe. It's like a 13-inch swing lathe, and it's we got a nice 6-jaw chuck on it, and that's quick change tool post, and it's just a pretty nice machine. Nothing. It's a Grizzly brand, which is made in China, but it's reasonably good quality.
Yeah. And this back here is a drill press?
No, this is a milling machine.
A milling machine? I thought it would be okay.
Yeah, and this is a jet milling machine.
Looks fancy.
They're made in Taiwan, and jet has been around a long time, and they're really a good quality machine.
Is it like a computer control thing or something?
Well, no, not exactly. It's what you have here. I have a digital readout in both axes, the x-axis and the y-axis, so you can keep track of. Say you want to drill one hole in one place and then move over an inch. Mm-hmm. You can keep track of how far you're moving.
Oh, I see.
With this.
Wow, that's like exacting.
Digital readout. Yeah, and that's down to the nearest 1/10,000.
1/10,000?
Yeah.
That's pretty accurate for a Vincent motorcycle.
So you can keep track in both directions, and it's a real handy machine, and I've done a lot of work on it, and it's got actually I've got one of these for the z-axis, but I just haven't installed it. But on a standard mill, you have a dial to keep track of the of the height that you're moving the table, so that that dial is down to the nearest thousandths. So you still can move accurately even though you don't have the digital readout. So this is a disc sander and a belt sander, and just a standard little drill press.
Bench grinder.
grinder and
And
wire
what do you use?
wheel.
What do you use?
And ovens to cook your lunch.
Do you really?
No, you wouldn't want to cook your lunch in those. These ovens are used a lot in, you know, in assembling stuff like the bearings into a crankcase. You got to heat the crankcase up, and then to
So the bearing will fit.
drop the bearings in. Yeah, and then just various other things you want to heat up sometimes.
I did that with a Norton. I put my case in my mother's oven and heated it up, and I put the bearing in her freezer.
Yeah.
Right? That was a good thing to do,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That was like, 50 years ago, whatever it was, but it makes a difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's how you got to assemble
Yeah.
things.
And
And this is a hydraulic press,
yeah,
so those come in handy.
20-ton shop press.
Yeah, it's not a real great one, but
Yeah.
it works.
Is this
well.
a blaster?
This is a bead blaster.
And what do you do with that?
Well, this is for cleaning stuff, and you
Looks like for making plutonium stuff, like in the movies.
yeah. So you just load your stuff in there, and then turn on the air, and you got a pedal
Oh.
you hit, and a gun you hold. Where's the gun?
Down the ground there.
Right
Oh, cool.
here. And you just
And a bead blaster is for cleaning off parts,
yeah, like,
resurfacing parts.
yeah, like you get. Now you don't want to put greasy parts in.
Yeah.
Which you do because you contaminate all the beads. You're reusing all the
okay.
beads all the time. They come down to the bottom, and then you pick them up and blow them through the gun.
Huh.
So whatever you got, you want it clean, greaseless, and then you can just like stayed on oil from over the years and stuff, and you just blast it right off.
Cool.
And
That comes in handy.